Semicolon. The semicolon is used to connect major parts of a sentence together of equal importance. Rule 1. Use a semicolon to join two closely related independent clauses not joined by coordinating conjunction. Tectonic earthquakes are a particular kind of earthquake that are associated with the Earth's crustal deformation. When these earthquakes occur beneath the sea, the water above the deformed area is displaced from its equilibrium position. Notice the semicolon after the word deformation, and it separates the semicolon, the first independent clause, from the second independent clause. Rule 2. Use a semicolon between independent clauses linked with transitional expressions such as adverb connectives and transitional phrases. Adverb connectives: accordingly, also, anyway, besides, certainly, consequently, conversely, finally, furthermore, hence, however, indeed, instead, likewise, meanwhile, moreover, nevertheless, next, nonetheless, now, otherwise, similarly, specifically, still, subsequently, then, therefore, and thus. Transitional phrases: after all, as a matter of fact, as a result, at any rate, at the same time, even so, for example, for instance, for addition, in conclusion, in fact, in other words, in the first place, on the contrary, on the other hand. When the transitional expression occurs between two independent clauses, it is preceded by a semicolon and is usually followed by a comma. Example: this outcome is a reflection of a strong sense of solidarity within the corporate peasant community. For instance, this solidarity is apparent in the tendency for almost every man to remain within his village over his lifetime. So notice after community you have a semicolon. So that's the first independent clause before that. Then after, for instance, you have a comma, and this is preceded by the second independent clause in this idea. When a transitional expression appears in the middle or at the end of the second independent clause, the semicolon goes between the clauses. Example: the meaning of solidarity is identified by the example that most men remain within their village during their lifetime. You can therefore guess that solidarity means having an identity or a coincidence of interests, purposes, or sympathies among members of a certain group. Notice with the semicolon here, and that joins the two independent clauses together. Now, therefore, we have a comma here and a comma here. And that would be the correct way to do that. So you have your subject and your verb of your second independent clause, and then you have the transition word right there. Rule 3. Use a semicolon between items in a series containing internal punctuation. This is going to help you in your reading skills, I think, if you understand this. Because of a powerful earthquake, the J.C. Penney Company building was damaged beyond repair. The Four Seasons apartment building, a new 6-story structure, collapsed, and many other multi-story buildings were damaged. So if you really pay attention in this sentence, you basically have three ideas. The J.C. Penney building, the Four Seasons apartment building, and then you have many other multi-story buildings, and they're all damaged. So the semicolon, which is used after repair, it separates the J.C. Company building from the Four Seasons apartment building, and then the semicolon after collapsed, it separates the Four Seasons apartment building from many other multi-story buildings. Without the semicolons, the reader would have to separate the major groupings, distinguishing between the major and minor pauses according to the sentence's logic. By inserting the semicolons at the major breaks, the writer does the work for the reader, so you are making it much easier for the reader to understand your ideas. Rule 4. Avoid common misuses of the semicolon between a subordinate clause and the rest of the sentence. If a member of your party is buried by an avalanche, their only real chance of survival is if you rescue them. Notice here, we do not put the semicolon. That's definitely not good. Between in a positive and the word it refers to. Example, beware of any contact with the black widow, a spider whose venom is 15 times more poisonous than that of a rattlesnake. So you definitely do not want to put a semicolon here. It's better to use that comma there. Positives are separated by commas from the words they refer to. To introduce a list. Example, to continue our discussion on major rivers of the world, we will now look at 3 rivers, Hindi-Ganga, Mississippi, and Nile, each of which have come from the countries of India, Bangladesh, United States, and Africa. Notice here you have your colon, not the semicolon. That would not be appropriate there. So items in series are introduced with colons, not semicolons. And do not use semicolons between independent clauses joined by and, but, or, nor, for, so, or yet. Example, blowers had not been invented, so they were not able to use them before that time. Here, notice we have a comma here, not the semicolon. Semicolon would not work very well here.